We have a tremendous panel. We're just getting settled, so we'll get ready. I'll start introducing them, and that'll allow us to move forward a little quicker. Toby Gabriner, doing double duty, right? You were here yesterday to offer great insight. President of Adapt.tv, the former president of Keraz Interactive Operations here in the U.S., working with clients such as Pfizer and Adidas. Steve Kerho, to his left, Senior Vice President in Analytics and Media and Marketing Optimization at Organic, having worked with clients such as Bank of America and Procter & Gamble. Ken Lagana, next to his left, Senior VP for the Entertainment and Lifestyle Operations at CBS Interactive, overseeing sales to the likes of TV.com, which is booming, and UrbanBaby.com, doing well as well. Kelly McGettrick, Director of Platform Strategy for VideoHub.tv, joining Tremor Media in 2010, moving to VideoHub. You also have extensive experience on the agency side, which I think will help us out, Maxis and Mindshare as well. And Chris Whitman, Integrated Investments Manager for Universal McCann's J3 operation, focused on Johnson & Johnson, dedicated unit there. Particularly excited to have him as someone who has been at the forefront of trying to meld TV and online video operations. So that's going to help us a lot too. Extensive experience in TV buying at Zenith Media as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let's get started. Several weeks ago, AOL made what seemed to be a breakthrough announcement that it would offer guarantees for online video based on demographics rather than clicks or impressions. And they're going to be, of course, using Nielsen's online campaign ratings, OCR. How much of a game changer was this, and will it prove to be, or is it sort of more hype than substance? You want to take that, Chris, to get us going?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of debate around this. We just heard a lot about it. Basically, I think it's a step in the right direction. I don't think that there's the perfect formula yet, but the bottom line is, what I'm doing with my team, we're melding these two platforms together. We're trying to do reach buys. This is a way to do a reach buy, a way to apply metrics around it. It's a step in the right direction, I believe.
Ken, where are you guys in relation to that? So if AOL is trying to leverage that to bring in more ad dollars, do you have to move in that direction more swiftly?
Well, I think, look, what we've said in the marketplace is if it's mutually beneficial for us and the agency partner to provide more flexibility in how they can buy us, and it moves more money to the business, to the medium, then we're open to having that discussion. And and that's really where we are. We are more closely aligned to television and what people call FEP, full episode players, and what some people call premium content than some of the other guys. So it's a conversation that we've been having for the last 2 months, and we just had our upfront last night, the CBS upfront last night, and it kicks off what's going to be, I think, a really robust season and discussion with a lot of our agency and client partners over the coming weeks.
So just to be clear, doing deals with that as a guarantee is on the table, but nothing inked yet.
As far as we're concerned, nothing's inked yet. I mean, there needs to be a discussion. From our perspective, we're not running out, putting a stake in the ground, claiming that we're going to go definitively one way or the other until there's meaningful discussion around dollars, clients, and all of those things.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would tack on to what Chris was saying. I mean, I think this is a meaningful direction in the right way. What we're increasingly seeing are agencies thinking about sight, sound, motion in a much more holistic way, and thinking about how do they extend into online video using a common currency, which is what we're really talking about here, which is like one way in which I can buy and measure and think about my sight, sound, motion budget. And I think that what we're starting to see are the drums beating louder and louder that this is a way, one, that online video companies can start to get access to TV dollars, and two, is actually providing a good service to agencies and being able to look at things on a like-for-like basis. Now, the last panel finished up having a very spirited discussion about whether Nielsen and GRPs is the right metric. I'm sure we'll get into that here, but right now it is the metric for television. And so if video is going to play in that arena, it certainly has to be measured in a similar fashion.
As Kathy said, we are a sequel. But I was going to ask you, Steve, if the drum is beating more loudly, are you banging on it as well?
I think in any number of ways, it would really be a great thing to bring these two worlds together, to bring offline and online together. And, you know, from a media planner standpoint, you know, it's ultimately about accumulating an audience. We want to accumulate an audience between all the different touch points that we've got, print, broadcast, and media. And good media planning is about trying to understand, you know, this audience that, you know, I bought on Fringe. So many of these people read People magazine. And oh, by the way, I can look and see I can now accumulate that audience from a buy that I did on Hulu or something I did on Yahoo or MSN. So it's a long time to bring those two together, because without those, from a planning standpoint, you're really, you know, operating in two very different worlds. And it's hard to tell at the end of the day what effective reach and frequency is. And we've got so much media fragmentation. It's so hard to accumulate an audience that has to be one of the most important things for media planners today.
Yeah. I mean, you know, to Steve's point.
Everybody speak into the mics. Yeah, thanks.
To Steve's point, and you know, I've probably had this conversation, you know, 25 times in the last 2 weeks. And the reality is with, you know, what our industry did with the new front and how everybody's, you know, banging the drum to try to get involved in the upcoming television upfront and move dollars and all of those things, you know, we're getting, the business is going to get squeezed into a model that fits the way audiences have been bought, where the majority of the money has been spent for the last 25, 50 plus years, and that's television. So,
before I bring you in, if Chris shows up, did I cut you off?
But just to finish that, my point, and the point I'm trying to make is, look, at the end of the day, and I'll use a CPG. If CPG X, you know, has been buying media the same way for the last 50 plus years, they know how many rating points they need every single week to move X many boxes of whatever it might be. If money starts to shift outside of that model into something else, there still needs to be a roll-up of what those rating points look like. And that's look, that's the client and the agency perspective. I'm not so sure that I completely agree with that model, but that's what we're up against. And we've sort of done it to ourselves in this business. I mean, we've asked for it, and now it's here, and now we're here, and we are where we are. So, you know, there's a lot of, I think, robust discussion about whether you know, that model makes the most sense for what it is that we do from a broadband perspective and a, you know, an online video perspective. But like I said, a lot of it has to do with you know, be careful what you wish for. On the flip side, it's you know, it's creating a viable business for a lot of you know, the online video providers, hopefully.
Kelly, what gets you burning in this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to, someone said it well before, stop talking so much and stressing so much on buying media or efficiently, cheaply buying media and take a step back. This is video. It's historically the most powerful way to connect with consumers. And what we're really doing in this space is trying to help marketers leverage that. You know, the goal has always been marketing and connecting with consumers through this sight, sound, and motion. And sort of the basis that developed out of that was, okay, well, we need to know how to and understand how to reach our audience first. You know, so the GRP is genius with that. It's a simple way, you know, not a dumb way, but a simple way, which is often genius, of really quickly understanding how you're reaching your audience. But the GRP was never created as the be-all and end-all. You know, every marketer out there invests a lot in TV, not just for reach and frequency, but for effectiveness. You know, it is a powerful medium. So I think in the digital space, we need to embrace that baseline of, we can understand that how to reach audiences, how to drive frequency against audiences. But even better than TV has ever been able to do in the past is we can build off of that and start to say when reach is being more effective or less effective.
You know, you bring up an interesting point. The very influential SMGX chief, John Musinski, was recently sort of talking about that on a panel, and the idea was, let's say we get to the apples to apples. So he would go to ESPN and feel that ESPN wants him to pay a CPM for mobile, internet video, and TV. And he's saying, you know, fine, prove it to us as far as effectiveness, but we're still going to have the question of how effective is this particular ad in this particular environment. I know often, I don't necessarily watch TV.com, but if I were, an ad came up, I might open a new browser, check out some other stuff, and then return after the break. So it is a different medium. So this apples to apples idea, is it too much pie in the sky?
You have to start somewhere. And there has to be a baseline in order to even have a discussion about buying media cross-platform. I mean, we could talk about lots of different ways in which that users, you know, they go to the bathroom in the middle of watching a TV show when the ad pod comes on, or they're playing with another device. You know, you could have multiple browsers open on the web. Probably mobile is the time that you've got the greatest share of voice, most likely. But, you know, I think the issue, and Kelly talked about it, is like you got to have the baseline, and then you got to have put some sort of qualitative elements against that. And it's actually a big part of what we're focused on at Adapt TV, which is like giving our buying partners the ability to think holistically about how they look at TV and video together. But it doesn't end there. It also, you have to bring in qualitative elements. So some of them can be subjective. Some of them can be from running, you know, IAG or Vizu or other sorts of studies. But there's ways in which that you can start to normalize this. And I'd love to get in front of John Mazinski and have that conversation with him. But that's exactly how I think things are going to start to play out.
Ken, I didn't mean to slight TV.com. It's
That's
got
okay.
probably the
That's
best.
okay.
It's got probably the best URL
No
out
offense
there.
taken.
Yeah. Do you have any follow-up on that? The effectiveness model, because you do multi-platform deals, I assume, with the CBS network.
Yeah,
and
we
mobile.
work, you know, look, we work very, very closely together. We do a ton of multi-platform deals, and, you know, we're having a ton of discussion right now with all the major agencies about cross-platform buying, and a lot of that stuff is going to present itself over the next couple of weeks. And, you know, frankly, we've been setting that stage since January. So, you know, as it pertains to effectiveness, you know, when you look at things like, you know, 97, 98 plus completion rates across long-form episodes and content, when you look at the ability to you know, enhance and provide rich media activations across, you know, the platform. I think, you know, those are the types of things that, you know, I hope, and flexibility too, and those are the types of things that I hope don't get lost as we continue to move down this path of OCR, VCE, you know, GRP based model buying.
I was just going to really quickly ask Chris. You and your TV team, I assume, will be participating in concert in the upfront market. What percentage of deals will involve more than one platform? And how will you? And what will be the metric that will allow you to go for some sort of guarantee? Does TV have a guarantee, and they're sort of throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks on the online portion of that?
So
Great question.
So I know that we're having this conversation across, you know, multiple platforms, not just TV and video. We're talking with print publications as well. It's I think we're getting stuck on something where, you know, we're so focused on is this necessarily something that we need to implement across all of our buying tactics. At the end of the day, it's a reach play. You know, you can buy media in so many different ways. You know, you want to do reach, you want to do something specially targeted. You need to be focused on reach when we're having this conversation about OCR. You know, ABC the other day, just Tuesday, announced a holistic CPM. I think we were just kind of touching on this with ESPN. I think it's a great idea. We need to prove it out. You know, we're already doing convergence buys with, you know, CW's offering something, Fox is already offering something. This is kind of a reality that's been existing. It's just a matter of getting everybody on board. You know, we're put in, as an agency, we're put in a very unique position where we have to sell through to the client. So, you know, in that, we need to ask for certain demands from our partners as well. So, you know, I think we're all kind of in this tricky situation.
I think the point that, you know, agencies need to sell through to their client is a really good one. And as an industry, we all just kind of talked about that effectiveness is important, and it seems that we mutually agree upon that. So how do we get there as an industry and really expose the effectiveness of our medium? And I think it's really important this year that we sort of mature the market and completely open up transparency. You know, really show what's going on in this ecosystem, and we all have this data. Show how consumers are watching video online, show how ads are performing, show the viewing quality, the viewability, and let's avoid what happened in some of the traditional digital advertising tactics that really pushed it down the funnel with just looking at an end result and sort of created some arbitrage in our space. And let's not let that happen. Let's open up transparency, give agencies the tools to really understand that value.
I think that's a really great point, and I feel like there's a lot of tension in the industry right now because on the digital side, we have clients that are used to a very high degree of targetability and accountability, and I'm going to buy through a DSP, and I'm going to reverse auction model, and I don't have any clients that are going to put that genie back in the bottle, you know, whether we come, you know, out of the recession or not. But then at the same time, we have this just incredible growth, in particular, of video online, where I mean, you know, this year it'll be about 2 billion. I've seen numbers that take us to 2015 at about 7 billion. We're not going to be able to take those kind of like that same kind of precious mantra we have in digital and necessarily apply it to that kind of scale. So I think these next couple of years are about trying to figure out how to walk that line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. Like we have we've been talking to a lot of marketers recently, and we have a platform that we've just completely opened up transparency. And some of the stuff that it shows is not great, and some of it is really compelling. But when you walk into a brand, and you used to walk in and you'd say, okay, you know, I did it on the agency, here's your click-through rate and completion rate, and you just kind of see the eyes gloss over. It's like, okay, well, you know, it's kind of pennies in that medium, so you know, thumbs up, that's great, let's see what we did on TV. But when you change the conversation into the language that they understand, it's amazing how quickly they start to get involved in the industry. So, you know, you say, okay, this is what your reach curve looked like in terms of time of day. You know, and it was in all in-view, high-quality environments. And then here's what your effectiveness curve looked like across time of day, even for something as simple as click-through rate. So, you know, something as great as brand lift, here's your effectiveness curve. But it even gives more power to the click, and the client starts to lean forward a little bit more and says, okay, I understand this. Here's my reach curve on time of day, and here's now my effectiveness curve. I want to think about this more because I know digital might be smaller, but if it can be more effective, then it can be more efficient. But right now, I think we have this hyper focus on how can we make buy media really cheap and efficiently with, you know, with various things. But when you talk to the brand managers and you talk to them in that language, the conversations are starting to get pretty interesting.
Your business, I think, is predicated on a lot of what she's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, our business is focused on connecting buyers and sellers and pulling a lot of the friction out of video and TV advertising. For buyers, we do quite a bit of what Kelly is talking about, from planning all the way through to measurement and you know, the buying and all of that. I hate to be on one of those panels where we're all vigorously agreeing with each other, but I couldn't agree more with what Kelly said, is when you walk in and you talk to agencies and you show them beyond clicks and completion rates and those things, and you're starting to show them like for like between the two. It's a much, and I've been in this business for 14 years. It's the first time that I've been able to sit with TV people and have real conversations and not sort of beg and plead for pennies. And it's great. I mean, I think we're at the forefront of a tidal wave, a tsunami change in media now, because the fact that TV and video are finally coming together in a meaningful way.
Can I go back to OCR? Because I think this is interesting. So if I'm not mistaken, Facebook is what it's predicated on, right?
Yeah.
Is that a hindrance, as many users Facebook has? Is that enough to give an accurate portrayal of web activity that all of you can feel confident in?
I think it's a great start. I mean, we work very closely with Nielsen, both in leveraging a lot of their products, and it is certainly the beginnings, I think, of being able to start connect TV and video together in a meaningful way. You know, there's a lot of work to be done to start to bring together more of the cross-platform kinds of things, and I know that's in the works. But we're still early days. I mean, part of the last panel, for those of you who are here, there's a lot of angst that we're using antiquated metrics in terms of how we do currency and measurement and things like that. I think it's one of these things that, one is that, yes, there's validity to that, and two is, we got to give the industry some time to shake out a little bit. I think Nielsen, Rentrack, ComScore, a lot of these companies are really working hard at this, but it's a complicated problem. And in the absence of anything that's greater, I mean, Gary Reisman said, an alien would come down and laugh at the way we do it. I guess that's true, but my question back would be, so what's the answer, right? What's better? Click-through rates?
Look, I think it's a start, to your point. I think about it when you sort of boil it down. I mean, would we have ever, as CBS, agreed to allow television to be bought based on, NBC's ratings? Probably not, right? So I think...
Are there any ratings at NBC?
I didn't say that, for the record. But the reality is right, it's a start. I also think, frankly, it's incumbent upon us. We live in a world where this medium is accountable. And, we're really, trying to identify and make better sense of what our inventory looks like in real time. I mean, frankly, I sat in the office of a head buyer who's going to be leading the negotiations for a big upfront this year, and she said, Ken, do you ever think you'd be sitting in my office talking to me about this right now? And I said, I'll be honest with you, no. And she's like, well, you guys sort of dropped the ball a little bit the last couple of years. And what she meant by that, and it's true, is we didn't proactively, I think, come up with a way to make it easier to be bought at scale and really tap into, those TV budgets, that $21 billion in revenue. And I think we have an opportunity now. This year we may be taking a little bit of a step back, but it's going to get us in the forefront, and we're going to be sort of on the docket from here on out.
Let me just say, Chris, would you tell him he dropped the ball, as presumably that wasn't you whose office he was sitting in?
Comparatively, probably, just because there have been a lot of conversations with people already in the past. I feel like CBS has always been very siloed. But I mean, as long as everybody's catching up to the game, it's moving pretty fast, it's not an issue. I think going back to Nielsen, I think Nielsen is aware of the fact that Facebook isn't enough. I think they're in the process of trying to bring on more data providers. That said, there are some things with the product that could be better. I mean, we're talking about unique reach. You can't get, like, if you're talking to a network, you can't figure out on a site level who's performing. So if we were to come to like an Adapt TV, they wouldn't necessarily be able to optimize off of Nielsen's information without cross-referencing it with their own internal data. So I think that there's still a lot of growth that needs to happen with all of these products. I mean, bringing in the viewable GRP or the viewable impression, that's a huge importance as well. Transparency is going to be huge, especially when we're talking about the ad networks. And honestly, to leave OCR for a second, programming's big. So like, when we're buying online video, we're not like, what we don't want to do is we don't want it to just be like this free for all, like, hey, women 18 to 49, let's do it. Like, we want to make sure that what we're buying is smart. We want to make sure that if it's going to cost some more money, that we're selling that through to the client the right way. So you're going to have to bring in things like a GRP. You're going to have to look at things like reach and frequency. You're going to have to understand what's the engagement of these people. Bringing in those other metrics that I think were dropped earlier that are more about am I making sure that I'm getting a mom that's women 18 to 34 rather than just women 18 to 34 in general. So I digress, but.
On the Facebook portion of the question with OCR, I'm going to kind of put a stake in the ground and say I think that actually is the only solution right now. if we really want to, and to a point you just brought up, that today when you look at GRPs, you see it on an aggregate level, so you're not able to get down into the nitty-gritty of how digital video is traded, which is at the placement level. It requires a really large digital panel that's evolving with digital trends to continually measure this ecosystem at a granular level in terms of reach and frequency. And I think that's what the promise that marrying Facebook with a traditional TV panel brings. We've actually, we integrated Nielsen across our platform, and starting in a few weeks, we'll have GRPs all the way down to the placement level, so that you can see across all your sites and really bring it, tie it back to the engagement rate within your ratings, the brand lift within your ratings. And I think that's what's really important about that evolution, because TV is fixed, so having a fixed panel with predictable patterns works. Digital is not. And the growth curve of technology is only going to continue. So I think it's really important that we watch and monitor as an industry that we are having a panel that's accurate enough to measure a long tail.
I mean,
Can I ask you, just to follow up, I think it's interesting, maybe we're going to touch this. So Nielsen's like the government, right? We all complain about it, but we all need it, or you guys. So if we assume Facebook is a great start, what needs to be added to that base to make it absolutely perfect?
Well, anybody who's worked with Nielsen, it's only ever been about a panel, right? It's always been a panel, and the panels are never big enough. Now, fortunately, they've gotten a lot bigger than they used to be. It's a much more representative sample of the total TV households. But for people that have a foot in the digital world, that come from digital, we're not used to panels, right? I don't want a panel. I want all, the behavioral data that actually happens online for my clients. And that is a great measure. People vote every day online. They either search for you or they don't. They either come to your site or they don't. They either come to your Facebook page or they don't. And when you kind of pull all that together, you've got a really great measure of how much demand is really being generated for that brand in a whole. And that's what clients are used to, especially clients that we have that are incredibly digitally savvy. So, the long run is how do we take that and make, get away from this panel and are able to pull more and more of just this larger, pure online behavioral data set. And I think that's really where the next battle is going to come from of, we've got the TV and the PC merging together. So who's going to control that? Is it going to be Apple TV? Is it going to be the cable MSOs? Is it going to be an AT&T Uverse? I mean, this is a good step. It's a lot more than we had in the past, but it's still a panel.
One of the underlying issues that we're talking about here, and I think there's two components. I mean, one is that you need a currency to be able to buy across. You just do. I mean, otherwise it just won't happen. The other is that we live in a super complex industry. I mean, if you really want to freak an alien out, have them come down and look at that Lumascape slide and figure out how to manage all this stuff. And measurement is one part of this, and there's going to be increasing numbers of ways in which that you want to measure. So there's one is like, what am I buying and how am I validating? But then there's how do I plug all the other components in so that I get a holistic view? And you may want to slice it and dice it in different kinds of ways. And it's a big part of what we've been focused on is like, how do you take this whole ecosystem and plug it in a way that can be useful? So if you're buying off of, a Nielsen TRP or GRP or something like that, but then you also want to see it, with RentTrack, or you want to understand the viewability components of it, or you want as media buyers and planners, and even on the seller side, they need to understand all these dynamics. And there hasn't been a glue that's brought all this stuff together. And I think it's what's made it really challenging in the industry overall.
Did I cut you off before? Okay. Okay. So I'll toss this out, and it comes out of the summary of our panel. So the question persists: as online GRPs emerge as an adjunct to cookie-based targeting, is the end goal to use both in tandem? And if so, what is the most efficient way to do that?
I mean, I think we're absolutely going to be using both in tandem. I do think that we need to have some type of measured and monitored currency that's it is somewhat of a policing government for validity. Because there is, cookie data could be argued as being different, but at the end of the day, it's another panel of registration-based data that's modeled off into behaviors or whatever you're doing with that cookie-based data. And that can get really, really weak over time. We work with many cookie providers, and someone says it's a male, and somebody else says it's a female. So there are issues with that data, but we need to know how to marry the best of both because, the digital space is so incredibly fragmented, and it's going to continue to grow. People are going to continue to adopt new technologies. So you might want to use that cookie data for targeting to really get in front of more women. Just a better way versus going into a site measurement platform to see what site indexes. But then I think you do need some type of governing body that's policing some of the validity of that.
Yeah, I think part of this is going to be, for the foreseeable future, it's going to be put together with some spit and glue. We're talking to one particular agency right now that's going to be using VCE for mobile and for mobile to patch that together with Nielsen OCR for broadband, and somehow they're trying to figure out how to patch that together. So I think there's going to have to be some learnings, and the whole business is going to have to evolve. The research part of that business is going to have to evolve.
It's funny, being at CBS, I remember a decade ago when Mel Karmazin was head of the company, he used to talk about his sales guys going to agencies and riding the elevators up and down looking for a place that he could have his sales guy do a multi-platform deal. Yeah. So you mentioned you've been meeting with agencies.
Yeah.
Chris, how has your structure evolved where Mel's guys who are still there can show up at one floor and not have to ride the elevator up and down? And Ken, what is your take on that as well? Are you dealing with the right people with the right unification?
I think I'll take the first part of that. My earlier comment, by the way, when I said that this agency person said that it was incumbent upon you guys dropped the ball, she meant the business, not CBS, just for clarity's sake.
Oops.
Just for clarity's sake. So, look, I think that
you're exonerated.
I think that the agencies some agencies are doing it a lot better than others. I think from an upfront perspective this year, they're very connected to their broadcast counterparts. In almost every circumstance, I have a broadcast person and an interactive person as what we call a portal that we're going to be negotiating deals with. And it's going to work the same with us this year. We're going to have, my counterpart at the network, and we're going to sit in the same room, and we're going to, figure these things out at 2 a.m. or however, whatever silliness transpires over the next month and a half. But it's getting better. The process is absolutely getting better, and we're not necessarily having to ride up and down those elevators as much as we used to.
Yeah, I remember digital guys coming into the TV meetings like 2 or 3 years ago. That's when that all kind of started happening. And to your point, yes, like these conversations are becoming much more top level when it comes to the broadcast networks. You're still going to see, when you're buying a portfolio of video products, so you're maybe not just doing an FEP, you may be throwing a portal, you may be throwing a network. We're kind of treating that a lot like how a TV network would come pitch to the buying team rather than go and pitch to all the separate planning teams, which is a nightmare at J&J. The structure's evolved in that, we've become this kind of central corporate kind of purveyor of information. And if we, again, like I've been mentioning earlier, there are multiple ways to buy video. You may not necessarily think that the GRP plays what you want to do. And when you're managing a corporate portfolio, that probably won't, if you're trying to do specific buys, that probably won't be within that set of dollars. So then you would maybe send somebody to a planning team. But there's a lot of different ways you can cut it out.
Yeah, and we, as a big interactive, company. CBS Interactive is a big company. Not only do we have that higher end premium content, we have things like CNET content, GameSpot, we have CBS Sports content, things like that, may not move in this upfront, but will be moving throughout the year in more of a, a scatter based. Some agencies are going to buy it all upfront, but there's a lot of agencies that aren't really set to do that just yet.
Well, it's good for you on TV.com. You have that premium content
and
that allows you
CBS.com
to,
and
to
the
sell a
audience
base and then fill the rest with scatter,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So let's get some questions better than the ones I put forward. It looks like we have one in the back.
Hi, Joe Mandisi from MediaPost. Well, first I'd like to react to Steve Kerho's size matters statement. I think that's true of all industries, and you know, if it were true, why doesn't the TV industry use the big, you know, panel it has, the digital set-top universe of like 80 million people or so? But my real question is, you know, I think the online campaign ratings is kind of a pragmatic move by Nielsen. And GRPs are really about simplification, you know, about making an easy standard currency for the industry to accept and use, and maybe it's an oversimplification these days. I was curious what you guys thought about Nielsen's new developments in audience measurement, the global TV audience meters that they've just announced, and the possibility that they will actually go to a standard metering technology, because, I mean, it'll be developed over the next year or two, but these technologies will allow them to measure digital watermarking signals for all media. So why wouldn't they just go back to a metering-based approach that would be for all media? So I'll just throw that at you guys.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that development, and you know, in the back of my mind, I'm also very hopeful that it will make this planning process a whole lot easier. Because you know, at the end of the day, I think we're all trying to bring what has been two really different worlds together. You know, what happens in the broadcast and the print side, and what happens in the online side, and consumers are just so fragmented, they're consuming content in so many different places that, you know, whatever tool set we have to bring together, I'm going to look forward to, and I'm really hopeful for that one. I don't want to say I'm a little bit skeptical, but, you know, there have been a lot of promises made in the past, especially from our good friends at Nielsen, so I would just like to kind of see the proof in the pudding and see how it plays out.
Take another question.
Hi, my name's Dean Mandel. I'm with Cats 360. We're the digital arm of Cats Media Group. And just, you know, in thinking about a lot of the conversations about GRPs today, to me it seems that what a GRP is the impressions divided by the population, and I think people actually forget that. Mm-hmm. And really what it is if you look back at how TV's been bought in the past, and again, I think there's no reason why it can't continue this way, is once you had a GRP, you then said, some GRPs are more valuable than other GRPs. Yep. And you came up with a reason why those GRPs are more valuable. For instance, prime time has always been more valuable than, say, early morning. Yep. And as a seller, it's your job to say why your prime time is more valuable than my competitor's prime time. And you do that. So if you're going to include video with online video with traditional TV, I don't see a problem with using GRPs. And why wouldn't the online video seller come in and say, here's this extra data that says why my GRP is just as valuable or more than the other GRP. And that's how I would sell it. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll take part of that. Part of the issue, at least where we sit, is that in order to actually sell based on a GRP model and deliver an age and a demo, you tend to have to over deliver by up to 35%. So when you look at the scarcity of inventory that we have in the premium sector, you have to be cognizant of that. Overall, I agree with you, and that is the main points of a lot of our discussions, frankly. But the mechanics of it are still really clunky from the business side of our shop and where we sit.
I would add on. I mean, I think Ken certainly covered it from a publisher. I think from the agency side, it's also interesting because you have the agencies are bifurcating on who owns video. So you have your digital teams who, GRP is not and TRPs are not a way in which they bought. So when they're engaging with media sellers on the video side, they engage in the lingua franca that they know, which is a myriad of different, right, click-through rates or completion rate, something that's trackable. And then the TV groups tend to be more oriented around the metric that you talk about. And I think what we're seeing is media sellers trying to figure out how to deal with both sides of the agencies at this point.
That's true.
I mean, I think that was really well said, but the whole industry needs to embrace it to go into the client and say why their GRPs are more effective. So until you embrace them and understand them, and then we can get to that level and you can walk in and really have that conversation. And there is the issue that was brought up of you almost have to blast a wide set of impressions to back in to a GRP, which has always been done on TV. It isn't a very effective way to do so because just like TV, digital video is a mass appeal medium. But if you open up the thoughts of, okay, well, I did waste some ratings against these other audiences, but guess what? They were highly engaged. That starts to change the conversation a little bit, but again, it's based off of that GRP, and it does start to open up because consumers are becoming more and more broad set. Moms are dads and dads are moms, so the data becomes interesting, and I think we will get to a point of having different ways to look at not just audience, but an intended audience, but the actual reaction that was gotten out of a consumer regardless of their demographic.
Yeah, and I think that really, I just want to jump on that. That goes back to my optimization comment earlier. I think that the publishers really, I'm not speaking into this. I think the publishers really need to be focused on how well they can optimize against this, say the Nielsen OCR or something like that. Because the last thing that we want as an advertiser is we don't want to have impression blasts where we're not delivering within a set time period and we're providing way too much frequency across unique users. So I just feel like that's an issue. I think that's something to be cognizant of, especially moving forward.
Yeah, and just, last thing on this, from our perspective, the thing that makes this more challenging is there's really no pre-planning tools. So it's very difficult for us to, if J&J wants to come in and buy, women 25 to 54, there's no, I don't have a pre-planning tool. I can put things, I can use what's out there in the marketplace today and make my best guess, and then, when that overnight hits that next morning, I could maybe find out that, I underdelivered by 60%, and that's, that's going to be a continued challenge for us, and we're talking to ComScore and we're talking to Nielsen about the pre-planning part of the process. We really need better tools for that.
Okay, well, we're almost done. We're going to have you all back a year from now, and since this space is moving so fast, why don't we just go down the line, give us a couple thoughts of what we'll be talking about as far as the main issue a year from now.
And you each get about 15 seconds.
I mean, I've already kind of harped on these things before. Optimization and transparency, I think, are huge. I think that programming, we saw it already with the new front. It's going to be even bigger moving forward, just because, we don't necessarily want to buy a broad target. I think it's important to quote unquote curate, which is like kind of this big buzzword going around right now, and that's what we do with TV schedules. So that's, I guess, would be my spiel.
I think it'll be ERPs, effective ratings, and we'll all be talking about how many effective ratings we want to upfront and buy and how much we're willing to spend for them, and maybe that'll be the next upfront next year.
So 2 things. I think it's going to be, I think the challenge that a lot of the folks that participated in the new front had this year in surfacing all that great content. I think there's going to be real challenge there in getting people to it and getting people to navigate to it so that it scales. I think that's one thing. And the other thing is mobile, and how mobile video is going to be incorporated into this whole discussion, because it's a challenge right now.
I thought that was it was a pretty successful first new front, and if not next year, the year after that, or somewhere in the near future, we'll be talking about just one front, not two, just one.
This is the joys of being the last as you come down here. There's a couple things that were brought up here. I mean, one is that certainly I think we'll be talking about cross-platform ratings point of somehow. I think I think viewability will continue to be a major issue, and I think scarcity and mobile would be the 2 other major topics that we'll be continuing to talk about next year.
Thanks, guys, for a great panel. I'm sure you'll be around.
Thanks, everyone.
To answer more questions.